Trauma. Everyone has it. No one talks about it. It seems easier to stay silent, ignore it, or stuff it than it does to honor it, learn from it, and finally heal. Trauma is debilitating, yet so often we suffer in silence. Trauma is not meant to be battled alone, and we are no longer going to suffer in silence. Together, we are creating a safe place to speak, to share our stories, and grow our strength as we heal. Together, we are giving a voice to those who have been silenced, bringing darkness into light, and letting God use our stories. Today, we find ourselves again. We relight our spark and let it light up the world. Stop SIS is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating on issues of trauma and trafficking, as well as the amazing power of the healing journey. Welcome to Stop SIS. Hey, you guys. Big welcome to Stop Suffering in Silence. My name is Denise Walsh, and I'm here with my friend Rachel Timothy.
Hey, guys.
She says hi. And we love hearing from you. So we've heard from several of you over the past week about the last few podcasts, including the holidays episode where we talked about, we know holiday season is here, and so what to do if that brings up anxiety. And then last week we talked about how to assertively communicate as best as you can to get your point across in a way that will be as heard as possible. You know what I mean? Like not putting up defenses, not name calling, not yelling, not all the things that can come when we're having a hard discussion.
Where you feel good about it.
You feel good about it. Yeah, because you're right. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even really about how they respond. It's about you feeling like you said your piece.
Yeah.
But we know that, we know that as much as we would like to say, we're going to have a very reasonable conversation about a hard topic and nobody's feelings are going to get hurt and we're all going to, agree to disagree or agree with each other. And we're just going to assertively communicate well because all parties involved are healthy. We know that that's not really reasonable and that it can most likely get into a heated discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And when the heated discussion happens, that's often when we shut down and maybe we get gaslit in that moment. Oh, it's not a big deal. Or, they're being submissive of our feelings and really not listening at all. And so this can create a cycle of even, you kind of call it secondary trauma of like, I'm finally telling you about this hard thing. And now you're not even listening and you're being rude about it. So in today's episode, with all of that being said, we're going to talk a bit about how to handle those tough conversations when emotions are brought in and the fact that sometimes they need to be. Sometimes you need to get loud. Sometimes you do need to yell. Sometimes you do need to be bold in your statements because we're not wishy-washy here,
Exactly.
And then we're also going to talk about healthy coping skills because when these things come up, we want you to be able to move through it as healthy as possible. And we know that the typically go-to coping skills that happen after trauma are not healthy. Right. And so, Rachel, let's talk a little bit about not healthy coping skills and things that you've experienced or you've seen other experience that, when they try to numb or shove it under the rug or even self-harm, things like that. And then we'll go into ideas for what can be a healthier way to cope with these high emotions.
Okay. So, I would say for me, an unhealthy coping skill was self-harm, or self-hatred, eating disorders, just anything that would take my mind off of the trauma for a moment, take my body out of that physical pain for a moment. I would grab hold of it and just cling to it with dear life because I felt like I was drowning. I know a lot of people, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be inappropriate relationships. I mean, there's just a number of ways where basically you're destroying yourself. You're like taking yourself out of the game to even be able to fight it.
I think that's a great gauge on if this is a health, because I know you also like played basketball until you had to have 12
Yeah.
surgeries. You know, some could be considered good. I'm a workaholic. I work really hard. I never sit down. And really you're wearing yourself out. You're working yourself to the ground and you're destroying your body.
I think that's key is being true to yourself and saying, am I being destructive or am I being helpful here?
Yeah. And for a while, those even destructive coping skills you thought were helpful, or did you kind of always know?
No, like I lied to myself as much as I lied to other people, honestly, when it came to my coping skills, because in my head, I thought this eating disorder is not near as bad as everybody's making it out to be. I really think God understands why I am using it. I think he's totally okay with it. I mean, I came up with every reason in the book as to why I'm doing okay using this coping skill.
Okay, so you're right that even if you were to ask yourself in that moment, is this destructive to me? You are in such distorted thinking that you might go, nah.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And I'll have conversations with people who it's funny because one moment they'll be saying to me, "Oh, this alcoholism is destroying my life." And then the next week I'll talk to them and they'll say, "Oh, everything's better. Everything's good." Really, they haven't drank any less, but now when we start to get to the idea of getting rid of it, then they're going to come back with, "No, really it's okay.
Right.
It's not that big of a deal."
Right. So that's kind of the denial phase. It's
Yeah.
not really a big problem. Everything's fine when in reality your house is on fire. She's got her puppy around, just so you guys know, like what is she doing?
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We love dogs around. We clearly love dogs around.
Yes.
As soon as your dog barks, mine will start. So just all right. And so the question to ask yourself, you guys, is am I number one avoiding the pain by pretending like it's not there? And we even talked to somebody this week who said, I'm not in denial. I know this happened. And we were like, yeah, however, you are saying, I know this happened, but it didn't bother me. I know this happened, but I'm fine now.
Right.
When you're clearly not fine. So there is a little bit of denial here when you're saying these coping skills are just fine, everything's fine, but you're clearly not fine, because if you took a deeper look, you would see that they were destroying you.
Sometimes it's just you want to be fine.
Yeah.
So you say that because that's what you hope happens.
Yeah. And so let's talk a bit about healthy coping skills and what that looks like and how to kind of make that shift into new habits, because you guys, that's all it really is. As I know that sounds simple, and it's not simple, or else we'd already be doing it, but it truly is a new habit. If you think about your coping skills as being habitual, when this happens, I blank. I run to my room, I purge, I you know, go for a 10-mile run or whatever. When I feel this way, I do this. We can shift that into a new habit, a new thought train. It takes practice, and we're going to talk about that. But what are some of the more healthy coping skills that you've adopted that you now use?
So let me back up a little and just say, I feel like when I was in my deepest, darkest, and I was using negative coping skill after negative coping skill, the number one thing that I needed to do, at least what I felt like in my heart, was reach out for help. And when I started to cling to people who were healthy and I started to ask questions and I was begging for answers. And then I began to adopt some of the things that they did that were healthy, whether it's, Bible time or quiet time, meditation, or a walk, not like a 10-mile run, but even a 1 or 2 mile run, some exercise to get the endorphins going, putting myself around positive people, not the toxic, negative people. Oftentimes when I was in the negative coping skills, I was never building myself back up with good people. I was surrounding myself with negative, toxic people and then wondering why I felt as crummy as I did. Why is nothing getting better? So recognizing some of those things, but when you have a community or a support system around you that has eyes that can see things that when you're in the dark, you can't see, I feel like that's vital in finding some of those healthy coping skills and getting out of that pit.
All right. So what I'm hearing is the first thing is you don't do this alone.
Don't do it alone.
You find a community, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, because at least in my situation, I failed at healthy coping skills over and over and over.
Right.
And so you can't do it alone.
Well, because you're in distorted thinking.
Yes.
So if you're like, well, I only cut once this week instead of 8, like I think we justify things in our mind and we make it okay, even if it's not okay. And so somebody on the outside can be, I don't know if the word is filtered. They could see clearly. They can see a bit more clearly than you can because you're in justification mode.
Yeah. And like I was talking to my granny this morning, and one thing she said, because, we have this granny program now. And she said, I feel like it is very beneficial that the grannies don't live in the same place as the survivor because they're more objective. They don't know the perpetrators. They don't know the family. They don't know the people who have hurt you. So they can be more objective.
Yeah.
And maybe a little bit less emotional when it comes to they did what to you type, like they can have eyes that see more clearly, not emotionally.
Yes. Objective is a great word. And a granny is another part of that community.
Yes.
So not only do we have 90-day U-turn where you have other survivors and you have graduates of the program who are pouring into you have us that you're talking to consistently, but then after the program, we connect survivors, if they would like, to a granny, to another healthy adult who adds consistent support in their life. And for you, that was huge to have that consistent support from somebody who was healthy and someone who you built trust with. So when she did call you out on some of the negative coping skills, you believed her.
Yeah. I mean, she was literally like who I envisioned. No, that's not how I want to say this. She was the hands and feet of Jesus. So when she loved me and never left, it started to give me the idea of who Jesus really is, not who my abusers told me he was, not who my abusers told me God was, but I was able to see a physical being who is acting out the love of God the way that it should be. And that honestly was one of the first things that made me have hope that things could be better in the future. And I think it built from there. Little things, little healthy coping skills, whether it was going to counseling, because I didn't prior to having Granny. I did off and on, I guess I should say. But going to counseling, finding a hobby that made me feel good about myself. I started to paint. I started coaching basketball, which was something that made me feel good about myself. I started doing more purposeful and intentful things with my kids that made me feel like just these little things. And maybe I would do it for a period of time and then I would move on to something else. But it was making a positive decision for myself. And sometimes I would have to be pushed by Granny or a support system to start and to stick with it. But eventually I would get stronger along that journey.
So some of the coping skills we've talked about so far is finding a hobby. I think that's huge. Really asking yourself, what are some things I enjoy? And you may have to search around your area, find a group to connect with, do a book club. Churches have tons of free things that you can join. My husband and I just joined a pickleball club with bunch of old people, and it's super cute. But finding a hobby, something that gets you out of the house, potentially something that could get you around people, something that you enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it doesn't have to be. It could be painting. It could be macrame. It could be crocheting. It could be baking. It could be a lot of different things. I also heard you say go for a walk, which is a really great thing to add to a weekly routine, because the goal is that we take these healthy coping skills and we're not just doing them in the heat of the moment, but we are doing them more consistently to keep our anxiety at bay, to keep ourselves from getting super revved up. And then because they're now habitual, right? When life happens, when a heated argument happens, when a flashback happens, you have these skills already a bit ingrained that become your go-to. Nature, getting in nature. That's if you can walk in the woods, if you've got a trail, if you've got some sort of either like a nature trail or even just going to the dog park, those are really great ways to just get out in nature, which again is important. Apparently the kids these days are saying things like Owen was told that he doesn't touch grass.
Huh?
I touch grass? And they're like, yeah, because I play computers so much. I'm not outside. I was like, well, okay, that's not true. And let's go outside right now.
Yeah. Oh
We
my
gotta
goodness.
touch grass, you guys.
Yes.
And then let's see. Oh, now I can't read my handwriting. I have baths, showers.
Okay, so I was going to add that because self-care like that is huge. When
Yeah.
I was in the pit, I didn't want to shower. Oh my goodness. Granny would harp on me about brushing my hair. I did not brush my hair. I didn't want to brush my teeth. I probably sound like a disgusting individual. I probably was. I don't know. But choosing to take showers and brush my hair and brush my teeth and put makeup on and dress, like I matter. I was dressing like a victim, I would put as many layers on as I could and cover up. And yeah, I didn't realize that was a coping skill, but it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be relaxing, especially if you decide it is.
Well, but at least you feel better looking in the mirror and being like, oh, okay, that's,
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wrote down music.
Yeah, worship music for me, but any music really.
Yeah.
I think something about singing and, whether you're all by yourself or in the shower or whatever, get it out because there's freedom in that and just belting something.
Yes. Yes. And then I have journaling. You mentioned Bible time, meditations, just like journaling, writing.
Yeah, I've done that a lot, and I'm grateful because I can look back at my journals for however long that I've had them, and it's neat to see the progress.
I want to go back to what you just mentioned about being like, even in with music, belting it out and actually singing or saying the words or kind of being loud. Why is that so freeing?
Well, okay. So first of all, I'll say spiritually, the breath in our lungs is from God, and praising him and belting it out is a way of honoring him and glorifying him. And I think that just naturally gives you a good feeling inside. I think it probably touches that vagus nerve from what I've understood that gives you a good comforting feeling. But then in another sense, I'm not singing real loud because I'm people pleasing. I'm doing it for me. I'm being me, and however it sounds or however it looks, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's opening up that space in your throat. And when you like, what's so cool about it is if you can sing and be silly, and again, we are thinking nobody's home, like, or maybe just kids, who knows, like, where's this, or in your car is another great place to kind of be loud, and it opens up your throat. And then the idea is that it will domino effect and you can be louder in other areas of your life too.
Oh, I hadn't think of that.
Good practice.
Because my throat closes up when I go to try to say hard things.
Yeah.
Physically feel it close up.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the hard conversations, because we don't expect it to be easy, or else you would have done it years ago, or it wouldn't be a hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, there's lots of situations. There's addiction where you say, I don't want my kids around grandpa. There's domestic violence. There is, of course, the pedophilia and predators that are within the family or outside of the family, but then the family, might not, there's who knows who they believe or what they believe. There's a lot of situations that we're kind of addressing when we talk about having a hard conversation. My question to you is, do you think that there's no right or wrong way either. I think everybody gets to figure out their own path, which is why we give lots of options. But I'm wondering if a hard conversation is best had in person, through text, through an email. Do you send them and then say, can we meet to talk about it? There are a lot of ways to do this, and I wonder which way is the most effective.
It depends on you and them. I think for me, having a text would be better, or an email, because then I have time to process and think and say what I truly mean, not clam up. Whenever they're able to say flowingly all of these negative things and I've got nothing popping in my head.
Yeah.
I need that break to process. But I think doing one of them and and not quitting because something comes back hard or negative, because at the end of the day, you are not trying to persuade anybody. This is not a persuasive argument. This is factually how you believe, factually maybe how they believe. And if you can't get along in those two areas, then that's when you decide the boundaries need to come up. But to not state your truth and not state your feelings it's not going to help you or them. And I've been stuck there. I have known boundaries needed to go up in certain situations, but I didn't want to go through that difficult conversation because I didn't want to hear their arguments, because their arguments hurt. And so I would avoid it. And I would feel like, okay, well, I did my part. I put a boundary up, but they have absolutely no idea why. And so whether it's a repairable relationship or not, I'm taking a coward way out by not speaking my truth in a relationship that at least did matter in the past. And so I don't know. I just feel like, don't worry about being persuasive. Speak your truth.
Right. Right. I agree. I do better with writing it all out and then maybe even printing it off and like reading it or handing it to them, or kind of getting my thoughts out first so that I'm clear and I'm thorough, that I say everything that I feel like I need to say. And so you can do that over email. You can certainly do that over text. You can do it over phone. I know a girl who was on the phone and then said, you know what, I'm going to email you all of my thoughts because I think it'll be more clear that way. And so then she emailed, and then they could have that continued discussion.
Wow, that was very cool, calm, and collected.
That was, yeah. I don't know if she said it like that or if she was like escalated but I think that's a very thoughtful thing, is to say, we're going to continue this conversation, but this isn't working. So let's move to another medium.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then sometimes I know it's been said, like, oh, and with the speaking your truth thing, like with the music, in therapy world, I've been to conferences and things where they have you scream into a pillow, right? Where they want you to use your voice and like, bah! And so sometimes you do need to mm-hmm. to either yourself or to that person. You need to be loud and clear, and you need to get it out. And so in that situation, I think the goal is to feel afterwards like you did the best that you could.
Yeah.
Have you ever been in a situation like that where then you're stewing about it afterwards because you feel like you did it wrong, or now you have to apologize? You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think that just goes back to I care deeply, you know. Let me share a quick example of the speaking your truth. When I was at the eating disorder facility, we had equine therapy. And one of the things that they had us do was to go out into this arena with horses. And we would have to get the horse to do certain tasks, whether it was walk through cones or back up into a square or whatever. But we had no lead. All we could do was use our voice. And oh, I got frustrated. And like, I mean, there were times when I got loud, which number one, I knew the horse wasn't going to hurt me. So being loud was okay. But the horse wasn't listening to me at all. And it was pointed out to me by the equine therapist that I kept saying, why don't you listen to me? Why won't you listen to me? And so then we related that to, you know, what in my life do I feel like I'm not being heard, where I keep saying it, but nobody's listening to me. One thing that I figured out too during the course of that equine therapy is a horse will listen to you if what you're saying matches what's going on the inside. If you're saying one thing but feeling something totally different, they don't want anything to do with that and will not move. But if you are in alignment, a horse can pick up on that and they want to do whatever it is you're asking them to do. So it was really empowering for me to practice using my voice in that way. And there was a lot of different exercises that they put me through. And there was one where a horse was hurting another horse. At least that's the way it appeared to me. And I kept saying to the therapist, do something, please do something. And they're like, you're in charge. You tell us what to do. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not an equine therapist. You need to say something. And they said, no, you need to say something. And I said, get that horse out of here. And they said, okay. And they did it. But the emotion that rose up within me when I started to see another horse being hurt and nothing being done, it was just empowering to then use my voice and see some action taken. And that was just a good exercise for me of my voice matters. Making sure I'm in alignment, not just speaking what I want people to hear to tickle their ears at the time, but speaking my truth.
That sounds so powerful.
It was. And you asked a question prior to that, and I don't remember what it was because I wanted to tell that story.
Yeah, I don't remember either now. But I think that's a powerful story and just another example of there's so many ways. I mean, even equine therapy is a way to reconnect with yourself. And, you know, we talk about counseling or coping skills or finding the right a community, a healthy community. There's so many different ways to do it that I think the coolest thing is trying stuff for yourself and really seeing what works for you. Because we could give you a XYZ 1, 2, 3 system to healing. But if I mean, let's be honest, there are thousands of healing books on the market because it's not a one size fits all. It's really what resonates with you. And that's where I love the journaling time where you can ask, like, all right, what are some things that I like? You can really be in that connection with yourself and the Holy Spirit and ask, what should I try next? And try it. Try going for walks, try pickleball, try baking with your kids, try some of these things for, you know, a month, 6 weeks and see how it feels. The idea is not to just try it once and then say, oh, that didn't work.
I was queen of that. I'm not going to lie. But guys, I will tell you, there was a point, however many years ago, probably 7, 8 years ago, when I was in such a dark place and I wanted desperately for healing. And I was clinging on to people. I wouldn't let go. I was grabbing on for dear life and I hurt so badly. And if that is you, like we've been preparing for this podcast and I have researched and researched, and I've dug in my Bible and I've pulled out scripture and I've thought, oh, I could give them these 4 steps, or I could tell them this.
At the end of the day, after all of this research, after really trying to hone in on what is the thing that people can do to experience healing,
don't give up. And grab hold of people who you trust, who want what's best for you, who have a connection with God, and lean on that until you can stand up on your own. Because then once you start doing these little baby steps, it's going to build, and God's going to be moving mountains behind the scenes, and people are going to be praying for you. We are praying for you. But it builds. It's not this aha moment. Now it's all better. It's looking back at the last 8 years and seeing all of the tiny pieces of my journey that have made it to where I am now. I remember a lady pouring into me and talking to me about God, and actually personally seeing God and talking to him, not like the God in the Bible that is, thou shalt not, and you did this wrong, the way that my abusers, used against me, but a God who loves me and wants me to be in a relationship with him. And like those little steps, and then being brave enough to go to a Bible study, and then the next Bible study, and then being brave enough to speak my story, and then being brave enough to create friendships with people who maybe won't view me like I want to be viewed, but trying anyway. Just all of these little moments of trying a little bit harder, a little bit more, until you can look back and be like, dang, I've come a long way. And it's all tiny little positive coping skills, sometimes in the midst of negative coping skills, but it's trying to do better each day, trying to do the thing that's not going to cause destruction, but cause more hope, cause more healing.
You heard of the 10-year overnight success?
I have, from you.
Yeah, it's in the book, The Compound Effect, I think, or 10-year overnight success might be Malcolm Gladwell's book. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but The Compound Effect is a really powerful book. It's by Darren Hardy, and it's a business book, personal development type book, but he basically talks about it's not one thing, it's these little things over time that add up. And it's like if you're in an airplane and you switch the GPS just 5%, you're headed in a completely different direction. So it's not these big, huge aha moments that, I mean, it can be a flip of the switch. There's certainly moments like, oh, now I get it. Or, oh, like that happens in the journey. But typically it's these small things that add up. And so in Malcolm Gladwell's book, they called it the 10-year overnight success, because in business, it will be like, 10 years of grind and focus, and here you go, and then all of a sudden you pop through and create momentum. And I think that's what the healing journey can be like too. It's like it's small things that adds up over time. When you look back, you go, whoa, I've come a long way.
Yeah. Like I was talking with Granny about it a little bit, and I was frustrated because I felt like as I was thinking about my healing journey, everything, which this is not something to be frustrated about, everything kept pointing back to God. He's the answer, where I find my worth, where I find my hope, where I find my truth. It was always pointing back to God. But then, Granny made a good point. Rachel, would you have listened to somebody pouring that into you back when you were in the pit? Probably not. Probably not. All I needed was something physical to take this pain away. And so, thinking back to where I was then, I remember going to a counselor who, she said all of these right things. She said the coping skills, what to do. She had book knowledge, but not experience. And I didn't give that lady the time of day. Granny thought she was great, but I didn't feel like she knew anything because she's not done it. She's not experienced it. She doesn't understand. Like, you can't just pick 5 things in the room that are yellow and feel better. Oh, it ticked me off. But I needed something physical to change the physical pain within me. And having somebody to support me through that growth and that change was huge. Having somebody always pointing me to God as my ultimate healer was huge, but it was those baby steps each day. Some days felt like 10 steps backwards. Some days felt like giving up. Some days it felt like I was completely hopeless in ever finding freedom and being safe and being a mom that I wanted to be. But don't give up, because it is adding up.
And you're at year 8 of your healing journey?
I'm year 8, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to say 10-year overnight success. It's going to take 10 years for you to like feel changed or shifted or healed or whole, or like you have a plethora of healthy coping skills that you learn on or lean on. We have people that just started a 90-day U-turn this April who are leading drastically different lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not a flip of the switch. It's onion layer after onion layer in a safe community where you feel like you can be real. You can mumble your words. You can say the wrong thing, but like nobody cares, right? Because we love you for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's been so cool to see that in just a year, life can be different. Now, maybe she started her healing journey years before she met us. I don't really know where she was in the journey when she joined. But big shifts can be made once you start to say yes to the healing journey versus the destructive coping skills.
Well, and if you think of her journey, there were points where she was in denial about it. There
Yes.
were points when she was in a deep, dark depression. She never would have said yes to 90-day U-turn. And then she started, if we're thinking of the same girl, then she started going to my speaking events and feeling like she wasn't insane, like her feelings were normal for what she's been through. And then she said yes to 90 days. So it was steps. Yeah.
And she probably wouldn't have said yes, 3 years ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so life still happens, hard conversations still happen, disappointment still happens, betrayal still happens, flashbacks still happen, like life still happens.
Mm-hmm.
But because you have, as we say in the industry, a toolbox. I don't know what a better analogy. You've got options now on what you can do, and you're in the midst of the hard thing. How do you feel when the hard thing happens? Does it take you all the way back to ground zero feeling, or how are you able to navigate through the hard thing maybe a bit easier?
Well, it's funny you asked that. So I had a terrible, terrible flashback that started, oh goodness. It was about 5 days long. And it's funny because not long before that, I had just been encouraging our girls in 90-day U-turn that you need to face the flashback. You have to feel it in order to get through it. Do not numb yourself. Like, I know it sucks, but I wanted to punch myself in the face once I was walking through my own flashback again. It's how easily you forget just how awful and hard it is. And so, girls, if you wanted to punch me in the face, I get it because it sucks. And there were times I felt like I was back at ground zero. It hurt so bad, but yet there was still a hope. And I think that was key for me because I knew I've been through however many flashbacks and not one of them has killed me yet. This one's not going to kill me either. I am going to get to the other side and I'm going to be stronger because of it. But it rocked my world for those 5 days. And, I got to thinking about how much of my life had to kind of be on pause during those 5 days. It just did. Like there was no way around it. It still rocked my world. But I'm out of it now. I'm on day 6, 7 or whatever, and it's not controlling me. I don't physically feel it anymore. It is now a memory that I learn from and I grow from. I know more about myself as a result of it, why I respond the way that I do to certain things. And I think that's why I say with flashbacks, it is God's way of saying, you're ready for more healing. You're ready to be more whole. And that's what we ultimately want, is our whole self all together again. Because when you don't have all the memories and all the pieces, you're not completely whole. You're not able to make better healing choices because you don't know all the pieces. So the flashbacks really are adding to your healing, but nobody wants to hear that when they're in the middle of it. You want to punch them in the face.
Agreed. I said those things and I was like, I don't think this is helpful right now. But you're able to use your healthy coping skills in the midst of that. You did journal, you did reach out, you did the things that you knew at least would help in the moment, but you also had this deeper knowing that it's not going to last forever, that you will get out of it. And I think because you've gone through these flashbacks so often, you've learned yourself, like you've learned your body, you know how this works for you, you know, because you did have some feelings even before it started, like, uh-oh, something's coming. Like you can start to tell. And I think that's because you've journaled and you've written it down and you figured out your patterns and you know how your body works. And so when this happens, it's not a surprise. It's not something you need to stuff down and think you're crazy. Like you understand what's happening, which gives you a bit more power too.
And that's taken years to get to. And it's taken other people pointing it out to me to where now I can do it most of the time on my own. But, as you were talking, I was thinking about some of the healthy coping skills. For example, in the past, when I had a flashback, I would have eaten, 24 ho-hos and then purged. And that would have given me a feeling of comfort for a time. It would have taken that ease or that pain away, eased the pain. But I didn't do that. I stuck with, this is what I eat for breakfast, and this is what I eat for lunch, and this is what I eat for dinner. And like it didn't even cross my mind that I'm going to go back to that. No, that it wasn't that way however many years ago, but I've created that habit, I guess. And so I stuck with it.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And now I'm not stuck in the guilt of
Right.
what I did to get through it.
Right.
It's a clean slate. I can just move forward now.
Right. And I think that's another thing to consider when we have these hard conversations or these life life popping up. We don't need to add more guilt and shame, And so when you do the negative coping skills, again, I don't want to add more guilt and shame at all either. Like you're doing the best that you can with the information you have at that time. But my guess is that if you're utilizing unhealthy coping skills, destructive coping skills, or you're yelling and screaming and name calling and, doing aggressive behaviors, even if you are using your voice, you're kind of going to the other extreme. When you come back down to center, that's when it could add to the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And so utilizing the healthy coping skills, you being assertive as possible, asking for help. I mean, you had to pause life, which meant you had to say no to things. You had to cancel things. You had to say, this is not and that's self-care in that moment. And there's some things you did do. You still followed through on some of the commitments because you knew that at the end of them, you would feel better. And so again, using your own discernment, there's no right or wrong, but at the end of the day, you used healthy coping skills. So when you got through it, you're not adding to any of that self-hatred or self-negative talk.
I think that is the key. I don't want to say it's the key because I don't know what the key is. God knows what the key is. But I am not doing anything that takes the pain away, but I'm also not doing anything that adds to the pain. And that's what the negative coping skill really was doing. It was adding to the pit. It was digging the pit deeper. When I was in the flashback, I didn't do anything to numb the pain. I mean, journaling, it didn't numb the pain. Speaking to other people about it, it didn't take the pain away. Nothing took the pain away until my body was done processing it. But I didn't try all these ways that I thought would take the pain away that actually elongate the pain, by doing the negative coping skills. So I wasn't piling that on top of myself. I was just simply being.
And at that point, you're just kind of allowing it to wash over you.
Yeah.
Like a wave a bit, knowing that it won't last forever, but giving yourself permission to feel the feelings and
yeah.
All right, I'm going to go through the list because it is nice to be like, okay, here's what to do.
Okay.
Oh, another one we didn't talk about, but I know we're going to end here in a minute, is giving back. And I think you did kind of mention that but giving back is a way to get yourself out of your own head.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's a way to volunteer or serve in your church or do things like that, that can be helpful. Again, we want balance. So we don't want like avoidance behavior where all you're doing is helping other people, but we want balance. And so giving back, finding a hobby, getting in nature, journaling, bath, self-care, showers, music, Bible time, meditations, journaling, going for walks, drinking water, baking. What other hobbies are there? I mean, there's just so many things. So try something, write a list of things that you really enjoy, things that bring you peace, and then work to add them into your calendar every week, not just when things are hard, but every week. So then when things do get hard, you are able to habitually go use those healthy skills.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question because I know we need to get going, but so one of the girls from our past group messaged me about our last 2 episodes, and she said, "Oh, if I could just take Denise with me to my holidays." Because I love what she's saying. I just know I'm never going to be able to be that bold. What would you say to that person?
Practice.
Mm.
Yeah. Nobody in the moment, especially, is ever that bold. And I think it's always easier for me to say in my office right here, right? Not in the midst of heightened emotion, but practice. And if there's things that you feel like a big elephant in the room at your family get-togethers that nobody talks about, but you feel like there's this heaviness, write it out and maybe consider an email first and just say, hey, I've got some things I want to share, or this bothers me. I don't feel comfortable in this situation, or whatever the case may be, but practice. And the other thing to consider, I'm sure you did this too, is you can send that hard email or text, or you can practice with someone in your positive community.
Mm-hmm. True.
You know, it doesn't have to be immediately to your mom or to whatever it is, right? You can practice with people around you so you can get feedback first.
Yeah, I think that's smart too. Have other eyes looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, all right. Well, thank you, Rachel, for this good conversation. We know that healing is a journey. It's not a one-stop shop, but it's a conversation we love to have because we've seen people, we've seen ourselves in the muck, in the pit, and we've also seen what it's like on the other side. And we know with like 100% certainty that it's possible for you too. So please reach out. We are looking for a few more grannies to connect with our current cohort that graduates at the end of November. A granny is somebody who partners with a survivor after 90-day U-turn and like kind of keeps the process going with them. So if that's something you are interested in, check out the description box. There'll be an email, stopsis@protonmail.com, where you can connect with us and we can see if we've got somebody that would be a good fit for you, and if this is something that you would be a good fit for, and that kind of thing. And then if you're interested in participating in 90-day U-turn, then think about joining in our next cohort, which would be in January. We need to know that we'll have about 8 or so people that are interested and wanting to participate, and then we'll be able to do another cohort. So email us again, or there's a waiting list in the description box that you can sign up for and be first dibs and just get to know. We typically, before you commit to anything, we'll do a get to know you Zoom and tell you a bit about how it works and what graduates have said and all of that kind of thing. So you don't have to say yes immediately. But anything you want to add?
This whole time I've been praying about this podcast. I've been thinking, I want to be as real as possible. I want to be as hopeful as possible. And I don't know if I did any of that, but I hope that you leave today feeling hopeful of your healing journey and that you're doing the right things. And if nothing else, we love you, we support you, and we're here for you.
Amen. Amen. All right. I'm going to end with an I declare. All right. I declare unexpected blessings are coming my way. I will move forward from barely making it to having more than enough. God will open supernatural doors for me. He will speak to the right people about me. I will see Ephesians 3:20, exceedingly abundantly above and beyond favor and increase in my life. This is my declaration, and this is my declaration for you. Have an awesome day, you guys, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for listening to this powerful episode of Stop Suffering in Silence. If you are interested in booking Rachel to speak at your school, your church, or on your podcast, then please email openblindeyes@protonmail.com. If you are interested in sponsoring a survivor on their healing journey and would like to donate to Stop SIS, then please check out the link in the description box or show notes below, or you can email stopsis@protonmail.com. And finally, if you are currently suffering in silence, or you know somebody who is, whether they're dealing with a current trauma or one from the past, then we will always recommend that you reach out to your local resources and find a counselor that you can trust, because nobody is meant to suffer alone. Have an amazing week, and thank you for being here.